All right, shalom, shalom. There you go.
Shalom.
Shalom. Can you can you hear me?
Khan.
Oh, okay, Con. Sorry, I look a little rough, man. Shalom. Can you hear me?
Khan.
Somebody phone echoing. You got your. You hear echo?
Yeah.
Somebody phone echoing. Hold on. Oh, that's me. You hear echo? Can you still hear me though?
Yeah.
Okay, Con. Yeah, that was me. My bad. I had the YouTube on in the background.
Bro. We watched enough of this to know you can't do that.
I
Please
know, bro.
Please turn your YouTube off.
Yeah, I just did though. I just muted it. I'm just trying to make sure everything's straight. Shalom. Shalom, sis.
Shalom, sis. You
Is the
know,
brother done all getting on here or
I don't know. He might be. I don't know what he's doing. Not sure what he's doing.
kind? But without further ado, I know that, time just
Most
trying
High
to
willing, you know what I'm saying? This will be a better way for us to reach the nation.
yeah, most high will it. But yeah, first and foremost, we definitely want to give all praise, glory, and honor be to the most high God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of our fathers. Definitely want to give a shalom to all the brothers and sisters that's tuning in to the live. Uh, Getting on here, man. New software. Got the stream software, so gotta apply it. Wanted to do something with it, so but shalom to all the nation that's on here so far.
Shalom to the people that's gonna watch this too.
Khan, shalom to the brothers and sisters who will tune in later. Maybe not during the live, but once the broadcast had been posted. But let's get into it, man. Usually gonna be coming out of like second Esdras 6. Let me go to my screen over here. I got my screen set up for second Esdras 6. Do you wanna share your screen if you wanna bring out any scriptures?
Nah, it's cool. I got scriptures already um already written out. So it's cool.
Alright. Well, I'm finna share my screen real quick. We're just gonna go into it a little bit, not too much in depth, but just talk about it a little bit. Just basically what the brothers of WFI is talking about right now. Just um, the end of the world, Jacob Esau, the narrow path, and second Esdras 7. So I want to start off by reading. Let's see. What did I? All right. So I want to start off by reading second Esdras 6. And let me start at verse number 6. And it reads, Then I considered these things, and they all were made through me alone.
So like you want me to read for you?
I mean, you can, but you don't have to. If you got a scripture, I'll read for you.
No, I was just saying, I mean, I'll read if you just wanted to break it down.
I mean, Khan, you can. Let me make it larger so on the screen.
I mean, I got it pulled up on my laptop. I can read it.
Okay.
I'm where you at.
Okay.
6, right?
Khan.
Second Esdras chapter 6 and verse 6. Then did I consider these things, and they all were made through me alone, and through none other. By me also they shall be ended, and by none other.
So right here, just going into this right here is we know that this is Esdras. Um, Basically, him and the Most High just having and the angels that the Most High is using, just having a conversation that just started back in chapter 3. But right here is the Lord saying that He made everything alone, and through nobody else. You know what I'm saying? And by him shall they be ended, and by none other. Right. Go to the next verse.
So how you doing this
What you mean?
as far as breaking it down? You reading through it and then going back to break it down, or are you breaking it down as we go?
We can read through because reading through might be quicker. So let me minimize this so I can pull up the view chapter. That way it can be all written at once.
Nah, I mean I was just saying I got some precepts as well. I didn't know if you wanted to wait for those or not.
Nah, bring him out as you please. Just bring him out as you please. If you got a precept to add to anything that's being written, then being read, then go ahead.
Con. Uh, as we just read in Second Esdras 6, verse 6. This is Colossians 1:15. It says, "Who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature?" Right. So, first and Second Esdras 6, he said, Salakia, and they all were made through me alone, and through none other. Right. So, since he's talking about making things, I went here to show that he was the firstborn of every creature, because the next verse will tell you. Um, the next verse tells you, "For by him were all things created, that are in heaven and that are in the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him." Talking about Christ, because he was the firstborn creature. And if we go back in Second Esdras before verse 6, it just he was listing a bunch of things that were created for him and by him. So Colossians 1 kind of tie it all together and give you that understanding that, hey, we talking about the same Son of Man. You know what I'm saying? We talking about that same that our Creator. A lot of people have the false understanding that our Creator is the Most High, which he is in a sense. He is in a sense, but at the same time, the only way the Most High is the Creator is because he gave that office to his Son, and because he delegated it, by default, he's the Creator too.
Con. Going back to Second Esdras, you can go to chapter 6, starting at verse 1, and it's the Lord speaking, and it said, and Salakia, and he said unto me in the beginning, when the earth was made, before the borders of the world stood, or ever the winds blew, before it thundered and lightning, or ever the foundations of paradise were laid. And that's just going into the long spiel, just like the brother was bringing out about all before any of these things happened. Um, the things that were to be and created, right? But going down to verse 7.
Hold up, Salakia too. I wanted to make a quick point.
Go ahead.
Verse 6, it says, "By me also they shall be ended, and by none other." Meaning, hey, look, he created those things. When your parents say, "Yeah, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out." So that's pretty much what he's saying here. He's the final say. That's why he calls himself the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, right? He's the author. So I got a precept for that real quick. Going to Revelation, which is, what I'm saying, the last book of the Bible. It says, "And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man." So we know who the Son of Man is. Having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Right. So if you were to see like a picture of a sickle, right, or if you don't know what a sickle is, it's a sharp instrument used for pretty much I would say like reaping. You could say if you think about like the Grim Reaper, that tool that the Grim Reaper, if you can get that in your head, he'd have like a spear kind of, or a pitchfork like type of thing in his hand. That would be a sickle, right? So the Son of Man has a sickle, right? But what is he using this sickle for, right? Revelation 14 and 15, it says, and another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, which is the Son of Man. That's what it just told us, which is Christ. Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. So this right here is, you know what I'm saying, him going into ending it all. He's saying, hey, look, it's ready, the earth is ready to be reaped, or the earth is ready to be ingathered, right? We have the feast of ingathering, meaning at the end of a harvest, you pluck up all your food, right, for the winter time, you know what I'm saying? And you store it in your barn, right? So real quick, so we can move on, I'm gonna get Matthew 13 and 30 because that's the precept that goes with Revelation 14. Right? It says Matthew 13 and 30, let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, right? Because he got angels, he got ministers that's going to do the reaping, right? He controls these spirits that go to and fro through the earth, Satan being one of them, right? To be reapers. And so he's just the one with the final say, like he said, hey, look, the end's not going to come but by nobody by me. That's what Second Esdras is saying in chapter 6 and verse 6. It says, gather ye together first the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. So, you know what I'm saying? This is the end right here. He's saying, hey, look, the end comes by me. This is how the end going to play out. I'm going to thrust in my sickle. And it's going to end by me and nobody else. Right? But that's all I had.
Con. And that's a mighty point just to bring out about the end, the gathering, you know. That's what the Lord is talking about, especially when you go down to let's see, what verse we're going down. Verse, we're going to start at verse, I want to say, let me start at verse number 7. It said, then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? Right? So this is Esdras asking, like, when is going to be the end of the first, and when is going to be the new world? When is that new world going to come in, right? Because let's go back to chapter 5. In chapter 5, verse 43, this is him saying to the Lord, right? Because let's start at verse number 40. It said, then he said unto me, like as thou canst do none of these things that I have spoken of, even so canst thou not find out my judgment, or in the end the love that I have promised unto my people. Verse 41, and I said, behold, O Lord, yet art thou nigh unto them that be reserved unto the end. And what shall they do that have been before me, or what we that be now, or they that shall come after us? So this is basically Esdras asking, like, what about those who came before me, us now, or the ones who to come? And the Lord said right here in verse 42, and he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring, like as there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. So this the Lord basically saying he has nigh people to the end times. And just like there is no slackness of the last, right? Because he knows that we're going to be judged for everything. There's also no swiftness of the first. That's what it says in verse 42, just basically talking about how it's going to be when that end time come as well. Verse 43 is when I'm hitting that, though. It says, so I answered and said, couldst thou not make those that have been made and be now and that are for to come at once, that thou mightest shew thy judgment sooner? So Esdras is basically asking the Lord, why couldn't you just create everybody at one time, so that way the judgment just could have been a lot sooner than what it was? He's trying to make haste the judgment. Verse 44, it said, then answered he me and said, the creature may not haste above the maker, neither may the world hold them at once that shall be created therein. So Esdras was pretty much trying to haste the gathering of the people, right? And back when you go back to chapter 6 and verse number 8, and it said in verse number 7, and it said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times, or when shall be the end end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth. He's basically asking the same question. When is going to be the end of the first and the beginning of the new, right? Verse number 8. And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. Verse number 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So this is saying that, hey, look, we're going to be the beginning of the next world, right? And that's what you're going to see in that gathering that the Ark just brought out in Matthew. That's what's going to be happening. The Lord is going to be gathering his people together, and we're going to be on top of the world. We're going to be the rulers of the world. We're going to be the chief princes of the earth, like it was ordained to be before time. You got something to add to that?
Yeah, going back to verse 7, when it says, what shall be the parting asunder of these times? Just to break it down on a more elementary level, parting asunder, right? That parting asunder means what? That parting asunder means cut in half, or when is going to be the break? When's the breaking point? Where is the transition? What shall be the transition of the times? How will we know these things, right? And we can go to a precept in Isaiah 14:1 because of what he just read, what the Ark just read in verse 8. He said, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau, meaning we cleaved unto Esau. So he's bringing that up, letting you know that what goes around comes around, like he just read, his judgment's like a ring. So because we clave first to Esau, now Esau is going to cleave to us. So in Isaiah 14:1, it says, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. This is the same man, same nation, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. So just like physically we came out cleaving to the heel of our brother Esau, spiritually and physically, they're going to be cleaving to us. And that's going to be the parting asunder of the times. That's going to be the role reversal. That's going to be the identifying factor that we're in the new world. We're in the new covenant, right? We know now that, hey, if that hasn't happened yet, you're not in the new world. You're not in New Jerusalem. You're not in the new covenant yet. Even though the old is ready to pass, it hasn't passed yet. Just right. Like your pizza might be ready, but you haven't picked it up yet, right? You might be ready to leave the party, but you ain't left yet. It's old. You got used to it, but you still haven't left yet. That's us. We gotten used to this life. It's old. We're ready to leave, but we haven't left yet. So we're not in that new covenant yet. But he's given us identifying factors in 2nd Esdras 6 and in Isaiah 14:1. When the dividing of those times or the parting asunder is going to be.
Khan. Let me see. I was trying to look at this precept. Dang, I forgot. I should have wrote it down earlier when it crossed my mind, but I'll find it.
You got a phrase?
Huh?
You know a phrase? Like what it say?
I can't think of the phrase at the very moment because I had it in my head earlier and I said I was going to make note of it, but I didn't make note of it. But Khan, just backing up what you just brought out about, the parting asunder, Isaiah 14:1-2, we already know that there's a plethora of scriptures in the Old and New Testament, you know what I'm saying, throughout all the Rakah Kodash, that point to exactly what you just said, us being back on top as a nation. Because you can even go to like Acts 1:6 when it talks about us being back, getting the kingdom restored back unto us. But even going back to the original to confirm that, how that was prophesied from the beginning, just confirming everything, right? Genesis 25 and chapter 23. pull that up real quick. And it says right here. Let me start at verse number 21. And it says, and Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him. And Rebekah, his wife, conceived. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Right? So that's another confirmation of Isaiah 14:1, going back to 2nd Esdras 6:9. Right? That was already prophesied by the Most High. Right? The Lord told her that the elder will serve the younger right here in verse number 23. That's the same thing, Salakia. Pull up the go-to at all the times. That's the same thing in Romans chapter 9, verse 11, right? If you start at verse 13, it is written as it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. You go back to verse 11, it says, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. So that's an ongoing continuation of prophecy about the end times and how it's going to work, how the Lord had mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave into the house of Jacob, right? That's going even back to 2nd Esdras 5. I want to say that was in let me see. I had it on screen earlier, but let me see. That was in 2nd Esdras 5. And Salakia, that was 2nd Esdras 5, and I want to say that was I'm trying to skim through it, but
dang, you usually got good memory. He was just here.
Hey, look, my brain just been going out of whack. Probably because I've been staring at this computer all day. But Salakia, look, I think it was in 2nd Esdras 5, but basically saying the heart, Ezra's heart was inquiring to Israel. But dang, I just had it up here too. But I ain't gonna spend all day trying to find it because I know how it is. It'll pull back up when I least expect it. Pecan. So continuing on, right? We're gonna go down to verse number we'll go down to starting at verse number 55, right?
I can make 2 quick points.
Con, go ahead.
I know we didn't read it. We started at verse 6, but in verse 5, I wanted to make note of something because you went to 2nd Esdras chapter 5 earlier, and you was talking. The Most High responded to Esdras and said, "Hey, look, the reason why I can't do what you think is right, like as far as making everybody at one time and judging everybody right then and there, is because." He said the earth can't contain all the spirits that are made. So the earth has to go through its lifetime or its cycle for the pruning or the reaping to happen. Right. Like we talked about in verse 6. So going to verse 5, it says, and ere the present years were sought out. When it says ere, it's just talking about over and over the present years.
Right.
And ere the present years were sought out, and ever and or ever the inventions of them that now sin were turned. So it's saying before the years were sought out and before the inventions of them that now sin were turned, right? Before they were sealed that have gathered faith for a treasure. The only reason why I wanted to emphasize that is because him letting us know that the earth, right, cannot contain all the spirits that are made. This lets us know, hey, look, everything is going to take some time. Everything is according to the Most High's will. We just got to trust his process and his pruning and his reaping and his harvesting, right? He's plowing and tilling and having multiple seasons and reaping all the good fruit he can. Because some seasons you might have more good fruit than other seasons.
Right.
When you're farming. So that's what he's doing. He's tilling the ground, right? And so I want to go to Ezekiel 9 real quick. Ezekiel 9:4.
Let me go here. Ezekiel 9:4.
Right. Ezekiel 9:4 says, "And the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem." Right? Who's the him here? This was a vision or a prophecy of the Lord commanding a man with an inkhorn to go through the city. But why? It says, "And set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof." And if you go ahead and read this prophecy, he's talking about sealing people that's going to be saved, right? But if you go to verse 5, it says, "And to the others, he said in mine hearing, Go ye after him through the city and smite," meaning kill. "Let not your eyes spare, neither have ye pity," right? So that's that sickle. That smiting is going to be that sickle, right? So he sealed up all the good fruit in the harvest and reaped it, right? But now he's killing and burning the field with all the bad fruit and the bad tares, right? And all the bad people. But the earth has to go through its pruning process. So I want to go to here real quick, just to bring it home on that point. Romans 11:25. Romans 11:25 says, "For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery." Right? It says, "I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in." So this is another answer to Esdras, right? He's waiting for the fullness of all of us to come back into the faith. And that's why second Esdras 6:5 said, before they even turn from their wickedness, before they turn from their sin, before the years were sought out, before all that, before I even sealed these people, right? Hey, look, that's when he's saying, hey, I made all these things. So who are you to ask me these questions? You don't have my understanding, right? And you know what I'm saying? That's just something quick I wanted to bring out real quick, because the places we go into, they all connect, man. You know what I'm saying? And sealing the 144K.
Dang, I was just going to say that.
Right, like sealing the 144K. That's earlier on in Revelation 14. We went to Revelation 14 already. Sealing the 144K and also the wheat and the tare. You know, he couldn't just take all the wheat at first. He said in Matthew 13 that he had to wait, right? He had to wait for that wheat to be different than the tare. So before the years were sought out, before men was even sealed, he already mapped this whole thing out. And we're not supposed to question him on that, because he's the only one that knows who's going to be in and who's going to be out. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
But
Right. Revelation 7:1, just elaborating on the 144K. And it says, "And after these things I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, that the wind should not blow on earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree." Right? Verse number 2. "And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea." Right? So he's crying to the angel that has the power ordained by the Most High to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, "Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads."
Hey, look, stop right there too, because that goes once again right back what we already read in Matthew 13. It says, right, "Let both grow together. Don't harm them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest, will say to the reapers. In Revelation, he's saying to the angels, but he's saying, say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. So this is him sealing, right? Before he hurts anything, before he hurts any of the trees, the people, if he's saying, hey, look, gather, hey, separate them first and
Right.
then do it. So, hey, look, it's going hand in hand. This just different visions, different parables, all allegories meaning the same thing.
Right. What is that? Matthew, let me see. I want to say that's in, what is that, Matthew 25. Is that Matthew 25:33? Right. Just like the sheep and the goats. Um what it says. Let me start at verse number 31. And it says, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a separate divided his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep, and he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Right. And then it's talking about how really the sheep being the ones that are blessed, the goats being the ones that, hey, you already know what's gonna happen. Just like the wheat and the tares, just like those can wait to be sealed. Go ahead.
And it all takes patience because, for example, like a farmer, if you got a bunch of sheep and a bunch of goats, and it takes patience getting them into their correct pens when you separating them. You got to be patient and actually separate them. So that's what he's telling the angels and the reapers. Hey, look, make sure the ones is in the right gate. They're in the right sheepfold, and make sure the goats is in the right gate before we do anything. Before we start checking for diseases, what we're gonna slaughter, where we're gonna who we're gonna take hair from, and all that. Hey, look, take your time. Let's seal whoever it's going to be, and then once we got them in the correct pins or the correct fences or gates, or once we got all the wheat into the barn and the tares bundled up, or once we got all the elect sealed, then okay, now it's time for the one that created everything to now end everything.
Con. So it's all connecting when it comes to, understanding like second Esdras, and when it comes to Jacob being the end, Esau being the end, Jacob being the beginning, the gathering, the sheep and the goats, the separating, waiting until all these things that happen, answering Esdras' questions about why can't you do this all at once, or why hasn't this happened? Because the Lord, he has to, we operate on his time. Going back to second Esdras 5, when it talks about in verse 44, saying that, hey, look, the creation cannot haste the creator. But going forward to verse 55 in second Esdras, let me go down to verse 55, right? Because I want to jump down to here. We could go on and on and on, but jumping down to starting at verse 55, right? And it says, all this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes, right? So this is talking about the children, the elect, right? Verse 56. As for the other people, which also come of Adam, to get understanding from verse 56, got to read up a little bit. Let me see. I want to start at verse number 54. And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. So this is a clear separation of those wheat and tares, sheep and goats again, right here in second Esdras 6, saying, look, we all come of Adam, and the people whom thou hast chosen, right? You got a point?
Yeah. And just to add to that point, you go to second Esdras chapter 8, verse 1, it says, and he answered me saying, the Most High hath made this world for many, but the world to come for few. So if you break that down, think about it. He just said, you made everybody that came from Adam. That's many. But he said, but you chose a group of people out of those people. That's the few. So the Most High made this world for all of the people that came out of Adam, but the world to come for few. Meaning, hey, look, it's a chosen group of people, and even out of that chosen group of people, it's an elect number out of that, and out of that, it's a remnant, right? So the righteous are scarcely making it in. That's why it's a world to come that's for few. But we
Con,
know that that world is a world of everlasting salvation, and we know that world is the world of Israel.
right? Just like it says in Matthew 22 and 14, for many are called, but few are chosen.
Con.
We know that, like the ox said, just repeating it, the world was made for many, but it's only going to come for a certain amount of people. Just like when you go to Zechariah 13 and 8, when it talks about the 2/3, it's like Zechariah 13 and 8, where it says, and it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. So that's just another confirmation of everybody is not going to make it. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be friend or foe, you know, you got to understand that the Most High has a chosen. He has a chosen elect of people. What's
Con.
that? Go ahead.
I was gonna say in the same chapter, of Second Esdras chapter 8, verse 3 makes it clean cut, right? Second Esdras chapter 8 and verse 3, it says, "There be many created, but few shall be saved."
Con. So we know that the Most High is dealing with a chosen people from the beginning of time to the end of time. He will always deal with a chosen group of people. And Salakia, I'm just trying to go back to chapter 6, verse 55, right? And it says right here, so we read verse 55, and we already read verse 56. And now verse 57, and it says, and now, O Lord, behold, these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and to devour us, right? But we, thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thine only begotten, and thy fervent lover, are given into their hands, right? And it says right here, going in, if the world be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? Right? So the point being made right here in verse 57 through 59, which is going to roll into chapter 7, which talks about the narrow path, it said that these heathens have begun to be lords over us, right? This is going all the way back to when it was prophesied that, let's pull it up, Deuteronomy 28, the notorious, the curses, right? So the Lord said right here in Deuteronomy 28 and 1, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. This was prophesied that if we obeyed the Most High and hearken, you know, like my Azrael always say, the root word of hearken is to hear. If we were to hear the words of the Lord and follow his law, statutes, and commandments, we will be on high. But if you jump down to verse 15, right? Verse 15 said, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken, if you will not hear unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee, right? So when you go talk about the curses, there's a lot of curses, but let's focus on some specific ones, right? Did I say that right? Specific, or did I say Pacific?
I think you said it right.
Okay. But right. So these nations began to be lord over us, right? You can even go back to Egypt, right? But let's see, verse number 32. Starting at 32, it said, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Verse 33, the fruit of thy land and thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed alway, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. So the Lord is saying that there's going to be a nation that's going to come and eat up the fruit of our land. They're going to take our sons and daughters. They're going to be given to another people, right? And we're going to be mad at this. And it says, verse 35, the Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with the sore botch that cannot be healed from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head, right? And the Lord, verse 36, the Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. So this is direct link, verse 36, another direct link to Deuteronomy 4 and 28, where it says that, look, we're going to serve gods of wood and stone. But this is how these nations begin to be lord over us, because we hearken not to the commandments of the Lord.
Con, a quick point too. You know, we got to make emphasis on when we're reading stuff to always add context. Right. At this point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're just now getting, you know what I'm saying, their stuff back. They're just now getting Jerusalem and the books and the laws and all that other stuff back. So this is why, hey, look, Esdras has a lot of questions. Right. Because if he were to have been homeborn or grown with these things, he would have knew the answer to these things. Because like the brother just read, that's the answer, right? And a lot of us, when we come into this truth, we're like Nehemiah, we're like Esdras or Ezra. We're like these men, because even though the book was always here, we're just now getting it back. We're just now getting the understanding. And we had the same questions that they had. You know what I'm saying? And we a lot of us struggle with our faith and struggle with taking this book to be what it is because of these questions that we need answered. And all we got to do is read, right? But I want to bring this out real quick in 2nd Esdras 5 and verse 27. Right? You don't have to go to the specific one. Just you could pull up the whole chapter, because I think I'm gonna read like 2 verses.
Let me go to it right here. You said 2nd Esdras 5 and 27. All right, we'll start at 27.
2nd Esdras 5 and 27. It says, among all the multitudes of people, thou hast gotten thee one people. So out of everybody, he picked one. And unto this people whom thou lovest, so he picked one people and he loved these people. Thou gavest a law that is approved of all. So right here, Esdras is like, hey, look, you remember you loved us, and hey, you chose us out of everybody, right? We just start in 5. Verse 28 says, and now, O Lord, why hast thou given this one people over unto many? Why you keep selling us to all these nations? But like I said earlier, if he would have grew up with Deuteronomy 28, he would have knew, hey, look, we got this because we didn't obey. Our people going through this because it's our fault, right? He wouldn't have even asked this question, but he did. And it goes on to say, and upon the one root hast thou prepared others, and why hast thou scattered thy only one people among many? Why you keep doing this to us? Why you keep scattering us and giving us to these other people, right? Like the brother just brought out in the other verse that he read. You know what I'm saying? Why are servants over us? Why are, people that's supposed to be below us over us? I want to drop down real quick in the same chapter to verse 30. It says, if thou didst so much hate thy people, yet shouldest thou punish them with thine own hands? A lot of us ask, hey, why was slavery a thing? If God loved us so much, why he put us into slavery? Why he put these wicked people over us? That's what Esdras is asking, because he don't have Deuteronomy 28, and he don't know how the Most High operate, because he don't have the book of the law to see how the Most High operates. He's the Lord of hosts is his name, meaning he uses people and nations to be his rod and his wrath. So that's what he was doing. He is doing it by his hand, but you're gonna see it play out by putting these people over us. And this is the precept you was trying to find though earlier. I think it's verse
33 right here. That's what I was
Con.
But to elaborate a point that you made too, verse number 29, and it says, and they which did gainsay thy promises and believe not thy covenants have trodden them down. So Esdras is basically like the ox said, asking like, why, if you loved us so much, why didn't you just do it instead of having these other nations be lord over us, right? Because going back to Deuteronomy, Salakia, was you done?
Con.
Oh, okay, Khan. But going back to Deuteronomy 36, when it talks about thou shalt bring thee and thy king, which thou set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there thou shalt serve other gods of wood and stone. This is going back to showing that hey, the Lord is going to send us amongst these nations, and He's going to carry us. He's going to carry us captive, right? Like it says in verse number 40, starting at verse number 48, and it says, therefore thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Right. And then verse 49 said, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Right. And then it goes on, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor shew favor to the young. But this is going right back in the when it talks about in verse 34, 33, 32, eating the fruit of thy cattle, the fruit of thy land. Right? We're going to be besieged in all our gates until thy fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee.
Con.
And
go ahead. He's doing that by his hand, but like I said, he's the Lord of hosts. The Lord of hosts is his name. Like when he told Nebuchadnezzar, I, the Lord, do all these things. I abase kingdoms and kings, and I raise up kings and kingdoms for my purpose. He does all these things by the hand, by his hand, but he does it through these nations. And what I wanted to point out was that because we read earlier about the reapers, but also we read about Salakia. Salakia. Let me find it.
Take your time, Mark.
So Ezekiel 9, right? Mm-hmm. Ezekiel 9 was a prophecy too, talking about, before Ezekiel 9 and 5 is where I'm at. But before, what I'm saying, the man with the inkhorn was supposed to seal people or mark people with the ink. And you want to be marked with the ink. You want to be sealed, right? There's a mark of the beast and there's a mark of the Most High God, right? And this is a spiritual mark. Yes, marks can be physical. For example, like the mark he put on Cain, right? After he killed his brother Abel, but they can also be spiritual. So brothers and sisters always arguing with the mark of the beast. It's physical, it's spiritual. And look, it can be both. There is physical and spiritual marks in the Bible. So Ezekiel 9 is talking about a spiritual mark, the sealing of the elect, really. And it says, go ye after him through Salakia. Let me go back to verse 4. Because like the brother just read, one of the curses was what he was going to bring a fierce nation, a fierce countenance that would not spare the young or the old. Right? So Ezekiel 9 says, and the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem. That's us. That's our nation. And set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations. Why is it saying that? Because Proverbs 28:4 says that all that keep the law contend with those. That means, hey, we're sighing and crying for all the abominations we see these wicked people doing. That be done in the midst thereof. Verse 5 says, and to the others of our people now. This is talking about our people because he said go to Jerusalem. It says, and to the others, he said in mine hearing, go ye after him through the city and smite. Let not your eyes spare, neither have ye pity. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women, but come not near any man upon whom this mark is, right? But I want to bring this to a point because even though we see him saying this to a man, and we know that this is a vision, and this man is probably a reaper, or this man is probably an angel, we see that angels are turned into spirits, the Bible says. And so these spirits influence these nations to do his will. So that's why you see the Edomite man come against us, and they don't spare the maids, the little children, the young and the old, because that's ultimately the spirit of the Most High God that's moving on them to do that, to punish us, right? So even though, you know what I'm saying, we seeing physically it play out with people, just know everything, even with the shooting that happened in Buffalo, New York, we got to understand that happened on a Saturday, right? If them people would have kept the Sabbath day, they wouldn't have even been there. So that had to have come from the hand of the Most High God. When the Most High God said in Ezekiel 9, hey, look, slay utterly the old and the young, both maids and little children, go through the city. Go to our people. That's what that white boy did, was go to our people. And he slayed utterly the old, the young, and he did not care. He didn't spare nobody. Because guess what? They wasn't supposed to be buying on that day anyway. So we can't be really mad at the white boy, because really that's the hand of the Most High God. That's the spirit of the Most High God and the angel that moved that boy to do that because of our sin, we needed to be punished.
Right, Khan. And just to go an example of showing even on a nation scale, right? Even on a nation scale, when it comes to being trodden down by another people, somebody being a lord over us. This is 2 Kings 25 and starting at verse 7, right? Matter of fact, let me start at verse number 1. I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to just paraphrase it, right? It says, and it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his hosts, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it, and they built forts against it round about, right? So that goes back to when it talks about in Deuteronomy 28 once again, right? And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until the high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou hast trusted throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land. Going back to 2 Kings, right? And then it said, and the city was besieged until the 11th year of King Zedekiah, right? So this is going back to the siege of 586 BC with Babylon and King Nebuchadnezzar are coming in. And the funny thing about it is, even with that, because these curses are on our people so strong, there was a Jake who even helped besiege this land with Nebuchadnezzar. I'm trying to think of his name.
Say that one more time.
The Jake who Tiberius. Let me see. Tiberius, not Romanus. Not Tiberius. Let me see. 586. 586. Let me see. Let me see. Siege of Babylon, siege of Jerusalem. Let me see. I'm trying to look for the guy name that helped King Nebuchadnezzar siege. But he was our people. Dang, why didn't I write that down? Salaki, I should have wrote that down. Right, Jehoiakim, King of Judah, First Temple, Zedekiah, Jericho. But you got a point that you was going to make.
Hold up. Let me see.
Salaki, because I knew his name. I'm gonna find it.
I can go here while you're trying to find it. I'm reading out of Jeremiah 50 and verse 9. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country. This is an example how the Most High, for example, Babylon the Great, when it falls, you're not gonna see like a miraculous act as like something magical, because he's telling you right here he's gonna do it by gathering nations against her. So when you see these nations come against Babylon, guess what? That's the punishment. That's the spirit. That's the hand of the Most High God. That's his wrath. That's his rod, right? If I want to get another example real quick, I will go to the example in, let's go to Isaiah 13. Let's go to Isaiah 13. That's a good one because he actually says he's the Lord of hosts in that. Isaiah chapter 13, it says, verse 4, 13 and 4. The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. Right? We just read about him saying, gather together the nations against Babylon. This is what he's talking about, gathering those nations. Right? And it goes on to say, the Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle. So if you go into that word host, right? That word host just means army. It means fleet. It means band, right? It's a military. So we read this, says the Lord of armies mustereth the armies of the battle, meaning he's causing all of this stuff to take place to accomplish his will and his purpose.
And to show what I was talking about is this dude right here, Tiberius Julius Alexander. And it said he was an equestrian governor and a Roman general in the Roman Empire. So never mind. He worked with the siege of 70 AD. I thought he did 586 BCE, but he worked with the siege of 70 AD. But this is still just to make a point on this. This is another curse too, born into a wealthy Jewish family of Alexandria, but abandoning or neglecting the Jewish religion, he rose to become the second procurator of Judea, right, under Claudius, right? And it said his early life, he was probably born in the early reign of Emperor Tiberius between 14 and 37 AD, and his father was Alexander, an Alexandrian Jew who held the office of al-Barak as head of customs on the Arabian frontier, but it may have denoted a senior customs official. So he was a Jew, and his younger brother, his name was Marcus. I don't know too many people of other nations named Marcus, man.
And right, that's a Jake name. But hey, no cap though. What you read earlier though hit home because that's you know what I'm saying, like in the glory of the Greeks or the Romans, best of all, he gave us, you know what I'm saying, what he was born into, the glory of his fathers. He also, like First Maccabees 11, 1 and 11, he made a covenant with the heathen so that, his oppression could be easier.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what a lot of us do today too. But nonetheless, that's a Jake, you know what I'm saying? And the Most High does what he does for a reason, just like what he did with Esther. Esther, I'm sure Esther had a lot of haters from the nation of Israel and thought, she was a traitor and thought she was making a covenant with the heathen. But lo, did they know that, hey, she, in the end, she really helped them out. The Most High put her there for a reason.
Right, Khan. So going to this understanding that, hey, even this is a curse, being that he was living under someone else's customs, rejecting even his own faith, right? Going back to 2nd Esdras 6, though, or matter of fact, before I hit 2nd Esdras 6, going back to Deuteronomy 28, all these curses is why this is Esdras asking this question right here, right? Because we didn't hearken. This is, these heathen began to be lords over us, right? And he's talking about we thy people whom thou hast called thy firstborn. He called Israel his firstborn in Exodus 4:22, right? Thine only begotten and thy fervent lover are given into their hands, right? But chapter 7, this is what I was going to make the point of, just the narrow path, right? And he said, let me start at verse number 2. And he said unto me, up, Esdras, and hear the words that I am come to tell thee. And I said, speak on, my God. Then he said unto me, the sea is set in a wide place, that it might be deep and great. But put the entrance were narrow like a river, right? So it was a narrow entrance. Who could go into the sea to look upon it and to rule it? If he went not through the narrow, how could he come into the broad? That's a point that's saying, look, straight is the gate and narrow is the way, and few there be there that find it. You won't be able to inherit the broad things of the kingdom if you can't get on the narrow path right now. Because we know that right now, what's that precept where it talks about broad is the way to destruction? So like, I'm gonna look that up real quick. Broad is the way to destruction. Is the way, KJV. Right. Where it says right here, it says, enter Matthew 7:13, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in therein. Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few, once again, that word few there be that find it. Right? And this talks about beware of false prophets, which come into you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. So once again, it goes right back into that few word that we was talking about earlier in 2nd Esdras 8:1-3 and Matthew 22. The world to come for few, because guess what? There's going to be few that walk that straight and narrow gate, like it talks about in 2nd Esdras, the 7th chapter and the 7th verse. Right? And just to finish up on that, it said the entrance thereof is narrow and is set in a dangerous place to fall, like as if there were a fire on the right hand and on the left a deep water. So if you was looking at the thumbnail to this live stream today, that's a visual description of what it's talking about right here in 2nd Esdras 7:7. On one side is like a fire, and on the other side is like a deep water, and in between those two is a gate. I mean, a path, and the path is very narrow. But the land behind that path is a broad land. But you have to walk that narrow path to get to that broad land, right? You got something to add?
No, that's I don't.
Con. Let me read verse 8 real quick. And it says, and only one path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could be but one man go there at once, right? So that goes to talk about how, and when it talks about the parable, it's easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than the rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven, right? And it says, if this city now were given unto a man for an inheritance, if he never shall pass the danger set before it, how shall he receive this inheritance? So if the Lord's putting all these tests, trials, and tribulations, if we're being tried in the fire as gold right now, and we can't overcome that, then how can we inherit the land that he has for us? This is what he's talking to Esdras right here in 2nd Esdras 7 and verse 1, starting in through 9 right now, right? So he said, and I said, it is so, Lord. Then he said unto me, even so also is Israel's portion. Verse 11, because for their sakes I made the world, and when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed that now it's done. So there were interests of the world, right? They're big, but that is the way to destruction. This is the Most High saying right here on down. It's just like, look, there's a narrow path that we all got to take, and we already know the narrow way, right? John, what is it? John 14. So like John 14 and 6, right? Matter of fact, let me start at John 10:1, and it says, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber, right? But he that entereth door by he that entered in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep, right? So if you trying to go another way to get to the shepherd, then you're a thief and a robber, right? Because guess what? Read it as is, and it says, and Jesus said unto them, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. So when it talks about that narrow path, right? There's only one way to get to that narrow path, taking heed to the word, right? Taking heed to the understanding that the only way we're going to get something is by obeying the Most High God. Going back to Deuteronomy 28:1, being prophesied about in Deuteronomy 7:6, Exodus 19:5, these things that the Lord prophesied for our people to be a great nation and to live eternally, right? We know if you go to Wisdom of Solomon, I think that's in Wisdom of Solomon where he said, look, he created man to be immortal. But since now that Adam transgressed, like it says in Second Esdras, and we no longer are immortal, he gave Adam a soul to be judged for. Now we have a way that we can go. And that way is these laws, statutes, and commandments. And that narrow path, right, we see is that word. And it's either you're gonna fall in the fire or fall in the water. You can drown or you can burn.
Hey, go to Google real quick, type in sheepfold, and then go to images. Since we got this stream thing going, we could show pictures and stuff.
Right.
So people get a good look. You could just you could pick on that first one. But I wanted to make a point of was, you see how big that sheepfold is and how narrow that gate is? Like, there's not a lot of sheep in this sheepfold particularly, but you know, a lot of times it would be a lot of sheep in that sheepfold, and they all got to come through that one gate. You know what I'm saying? And you know, just thinking about life is like this, because everything is really kind of, the Bible really uses husbandry, because it says husbandry is ordained. It says hate not laborious work, right? And it says that he ordained husbandry, paraphrasing. But the life is like husbandry, or taking care of livestock and taking care of like food and stuff like that, or homesteading. But we looking at this sheepfold, right? Think about it. He says, you know, there are sheep that are not of this fold. So, hey, guess what? He got to go get those sheep. So imagine there being a sheepfold full of sheep, and the people, and then you got lost sheep. So he's trying to usher in all these sheep into this straight and narrow gate, and he got a lot of them in there. You know what I'm saying? Like David, Abraham, a lot of great men before us. They probably already in that sheepfold. But there's lost sheep, right? Lost sheep of the house of Israel. And even while he was ushering in with his rod and his staff, the law, statutes, and commandments, they kind of spread it out because they rejected that rod and that staff. So now they're in the clefts of the rocks. He got to go hunt them. But as he goes and hunts them, right, all the people that's still in the sheepfold, the people that's coming to the truth, we got to stay girded up, because our shepherd's gone now. He's not there sitting at the door no more, right? If you go to that first picture you went to, there was a shepherd sitting at that door, right? He left. You know what I'm saying? He left to go get the lost sheep. And that left us susceptible to attack. And so that's why we can't be ignorant of Satan's devices, because we're sheep in the midst of wolves right now until he come back, right? And then when he come back, and that's when he gonna shut that door, shut the ark, and whoever's in that sheepfold, that's gonna be his sheep. He said his sheep hear his voice. So the ones that's lost, he calling for them. He don't even have to go run and look for them for real, because he said God's going to draw them. He said, not of me, but the Father who draws them to me. And all he got to do is yell out to him, because he said his sheep know his voice, right? And I was just trying to use that as an example, just so you understand, like, it's very scarce, man. And that road is very narrow, and you don't want to miss your opportunity to be a part of that sheepfold, because you can't get in the sheepfold any other way. You can't jump this wall of rocks. You know what I'm saying? This wall of rocks is pretty short. He's sitting down, and it's at the top of his head pretty much. So if he stood up, anybody can get it. There's no barbed wire or nothing. But if you come in any other way, you're a thief and a robber. But
But Khan, going back to it real quick again, just for the public eye to see it. John 10:1. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. Right? Going back to that image. If you don't if you don't go in right here, you're a thief and a robber, right? If you climbing up this way, that way, you're a thief and a robber. Consider us like the sheep. And instead of that, you got that one sheep that instead of going through here, oh, it's too many people, right? They try to go around, right? There's only one way to get into eternal life. There's only one way to receive the blessings that the Most High said that he was going to give his people. And that's through that narrow path, that door, that sheepfold door, and not going up the other side.
Because when you get in that sheepfold, The sheepfolds for multiple reasons. One being rest. You go into that sheepfold, you're gonna see a lot of sheep on their knees resting. So that's eternal rest that we're talking about.
Right.
And that's eternal peace and safety that he promises to us in Revelation in the end times, that we're going to be dwelling in safety and peace. No more sorrow, no more crying. We're going to be at rest because we're working right now. We're going to be at rest. But if you miss that sheepfold and you outside them gates, you outside that sheepfold, nothing but danger, nothing but torment day and night. You by yourself. You wondering where your next meal going to come from. The curses. You're being attacked by fierce animals and beasts. The curses. Right? You're being spoiled and eaten. The curses. You're susceptible to getting diseases because you don't have no shepherd to clean you. That's the curses, right? So you gotta get ushered in by that rod and that staff and come into that straight gate.
Con. And let me end it on this, right? Revelation chapter 21. Revelation 21, so I can, right? Hey, and read Psalms 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Right. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of my enemies. Look, so right here, Revelation 21, and let me say let's start at 1, read 1 through 4, right? And he said, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband, right? And I heard a great voice of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God, right? No, going back to Hosea 1 and 10, wherein it was said, you will not call my people, there you shall be called sons of the living God, right? Verse number 4, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away, right? So ending it on that, man, just saying that, hey, look, we went over a lot in a good bit of time, but hey, second Esdras 5, 6, 7, all the good insight to the Lord, his chosen, the people that also come from Adam, who the world was made for, and how to get that inheritance that was promised to the people through that narrow path, that sheepfold, that door to the sheepfold, right? You got to enter in that narrow path, or else, you know what I'm saying, you won't be able to get it, because broad is the way to destruction. It's two sides of that bridge, of that narrow path. It's fire and water. You know what I'm saying? You can drown and you can get burned up and consumed, right? But if you stay on that narrow path, you can enter into the promised land, right? You got anything to add?
No, I'm good.
Right? And Revelation 21 and 7, and it says, he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son, right? But with that, man, I'm going to just go ahead and say, hey, look, all praise to the Most High. I want to give a mighty shalom to the people who came and viewed. Shalom to the brother Azrael. Shalom to all the brothers and sisters that, you know, stayed on the video. Shalom to the brothers and sisters who are going to read it. Want to give all praise, glory, honor to the Most High through the name of his only begotten son. You got anything to add, brother?
Shalom. Keep enduring.
Shalom. Romans 10 and 1.